So essentially, what gives crypto its value is that, as you mentioned before, is the unfalsifiableness of the ledger, right? That unlike central banks that can, the problem you have with, I know with many investors dealing with the Chinese currency is that, the value of that currency ultimately depends upon the whims of what someone in Beijing determines it's going to be. Other countries run the printing presses, but this is essentially a closed process that can't be fiddled with by running the printing press or devaluing the currency.
Yeah.
It has its value. What has to happen in terms of, you said, the scaling up? I mean, at what point is there a tipping point where this becomes more accepted? Is it, what does the El Salvadoran decision, for instance, is this the start of a process, or is this some people are going to look at this and say that's just a crazy step taken by a small Central American country that doesn't have ramifications for the rest of the world? I mean,
Yeah, I must say personally, I've been taken aback by what's happened in El Salvador. And I think even the biggest Bitcoin evangelists wouldn't have expected a nation to adopt it as a legal tender, as just happened a couple of weeks ago. And again, consider that only 7 people per second can use this network. El Salvador is millions of people. It's a small country, but still, way more commerce and transaction demand for the currency than Bitcoin could possibly accommodate. And what's going to happen is that people will use synthetic platforms to trade Bitcoin off of the blockchain. So there's a well-known service called the Lightning Network, where you could take some Bitcoins off the blockchain and then use them in retail commerce, maybe at a much higher velocity, and then reconcile the net back to the Bitcoin blockchain. But everything that happens off of the blockchain is essentially reverting to the old system, where you're trusting a group of managers who are running, a separate company that may or may not keep good track of the money and protect you against fraud and so forth. And there have been a whole network of third parties, wallet companies and organizations that look a lot like banks and brokerages, but are not really regulated that way. But these have sprung up to essentially provide a layer above the real network of crypto. But the security and the transparency that you get on the true use of crypto is not really present with those third parties. And some of them get hacked. Some of them just disappear in the dark of night. And there is, really a very unusual tension. People, I think, believe they own Bitcoin when they really don't. It's really some third party has told them that they're holding on to it for them, but there's no real way to validate the truth of that statement. And there have been some, catastrophic failures of some of these organizations, such as the Mt. Gox exchange in Japan, which is probably the most famous and is now well into the 8th year of a very controversial bankruptcy case where hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin disappeared. So I think a lot of people are waking up to recognize that the scalability of this as a currency doesn't really exist. And they are putting their trust in third parties who may or may not be worthy of that trust, but who, I think sooner or later will have to be regulated the way that we regulate banks and brokerages, because that's more or less the services that they are performing, just not with stocks and bonds and regular currencies as the underlying assets.